Hey, welcome on into another edition of Lunch with Claibs and Joe here on claibsonline.com. We are powered by Ameren, Illinois, driven by Munganess St. Louis Acura, and also sponsored by Ryan Kelly, the home loan expert. Find him online at thehomeloanexpert.com. I am Joe Roderick, joined alongside by Mike Claiborne. Claibs, you all recovered from the past weekend on the call on KMOX?
No. Yesterday took forever. A 2-hour and 10-minute rain delay, a 3-hour and 43-minute game, and oh, by the way, we're going to Pittsburgh today. So it'll take me at least until the evening to just get myself situated. But I'm looking forward to the road trip because we go from Pittsburgh to Kansas City. And, I always like going to Kansas City for a lot of different reasons. Great fan base. The Negro League Museum is there. I always go see my buddy Bob Kendrick, and I'm going to be part of a roundtable they're going to have there, I believe, on Saturday. So a good road trip I'm looking forward to. But, Joe, more importantly, it's a road trip the Cardinals have to win decisively. I mean, it's 6 games. You need to win 5 of the 6 minimum if you want to have any chance, because when you get back home, the Milwaukee Brewers will be waiting for you. And I'm not saying that they can catch the Brewers, but they need to start making up ground on some teams because Cincinnati is now in the hunt for the wild card also with San Diego. So a very important week of baseball.
Yeah, and Rammer and I have talked about this. This is the same conversation we had in June. Yeah. When we looked at that schedule in June and you saw all the bad teams on that schedule and you looked at it and you said, you know what? Hey, they could win 20 games this month and be right back in the mix. And then I think they won like 11. And, and you just looked at it and you just kind of shake your head and you go, okay, I guess this is the team that's going to be put out in front of us. And yeah, they are more than a handful of games out of any playoff race right now. But as you said, you have 6 games against bad teams this week. It's right there in front of you to take it. And if you want to be in the postseason, you have to make a run at some point to win these games.
Well, you're right. And I think the other element we need to pay attention here to is Jack Flaherty said he's planning on pitching in Pittsburgh. My question is, why not move him back a day where he doesn't have to pick up a bat this weekend and go into Kansas City, and then you'll have him ready to go against Milwaukee the following week. And I think that winning against Milwaukee, you should be able to beat Pittsburgh without Jack Flaherty, okay? But, beating Kansas City and then having him have a starter on his belt before he takes on Milwaukee at home, I think is even more important. So I'm anxious to talk to Mike Schilt about that tomorrow, just to get his thoughts on the mindset on why that he feels like, or at least Jack feels, that he wants to pitch in Pittsburgh. And I get it. He's anxious. But, Joe, we're at that stage. I mean, as Mike Schilt said earlier to me this week, this is when we sprint. I mean, there's no looking ahead. You have to go out and go get it. And, you don't have any excuses. This is what it is.
I know you get to talk with Mike Schilt in a more one-on-one. Really, you do get to talk to him one-on-one before every single game, unlike many in the media. A lot of his decisions have kind of come under fire here recently with the way the bullpen has been used. In your conversations with him, has that come up? Has he addressed just kind of the use of guys like Giovanni Gallegos, especially the day after they struggle?
Well, he. If there's one thing Mike Schilt does well is manage a bullpen. And the reason why I say that is he puts guys in good positions to succeed. Now, Gallegos just got beat up, and it was just one of those nights. And every now and then somebody's going to get you. But the way he's tried to use Cabrera, Reyes, and Gallegos, and now you're starting to see him stretch it out a little bit with TJ McFarland. Justin Williams is giving you some good innings. Luis Garcia, who I thought would be the first guy out, gave you really 2 good innings the other day. So I don't know if the bullpen is questioned, in my opinion, should be questioned as much as the fact that what he has to work with. I think that's the bigger issue. I mean, you think about Garcia, McFarland, Justin Williams, all guys who were either in the minors or didn't have a job with another organization. And that's not how you run a railroad. I mean, think about it. Ponce de Leon has been injured. He hasn't been as effective as you wanted him to be. Ryan Helsley is still a thrower. Okay. I'm not sure if he's pitching yet. So your resources, I think, have been limited. Hence the reason why, if you want to question Schilt, I think you have to question the assets that he has, and I don't think he has enough.
Yeah, and now you are going to have, you already brought up Jack Flaherty's coming back this week at some point, whether it be Thursday or Friday, this against the Pirates or the Royals. But you also have Miles Michaelis. That's not far behind him. That's also says that his next time that he's going to throw should be in a Cardinal uniform. So that does ask the question of who is going to be out, who has options that's on this rotation right now, or with the way John Lester is thrown in these first two outings, do you just kind of look at that and say, okay, we wanted him to eat innings. He's not going to eat innings. Good luck to you.
No, I'm going to keep Lester around. Yesterday was a prime example of you didn't execute behind him. And I think that's what really hurt him more than anything else. The first game, he got squeezed on a pitch, and he never recovered from having his moment with Todd Tichenor, the home plate umpire, and I think it created a distraction. He wasn't able to push a reset button on quick enough for. I think what's interesting is a guy like Wade LeBlanc. Do you move him into the bullpen? He's giving you some good quality outings, but he can give you length. So my thing is, if I can have Flaherty, and this is why I think it's important, I would pitch him on Friday. If you have Flaherty starting that series, and then you come back with, if Flaherty gives you 5, because you don't know how much he's going to be able to give you. Now you have LeBlanc who can give you 3. Now you got a bullpen that can give you 1, and I think you have a better chance. You go to Pittsburgh and all of a sudden Flaherty springs a leak, and now you're going through 4 or 5 guys in the bullpen. I just don't think that that's a situation that works, especially if you don't score runs as consistently as the Cardinals need to be scoring them. And they haven't been consistent. Let's face it. That's been the problem. And yesterday was magnified. Even though you scored 5 runs, you had multiple opportunities, including the 4th inning, bases loaded, nobody out. And you hit into a 1-2-3 double play, your pitcher is up next, and the inning's over, you don't score. And that's what really gave the impetus for Kansas City, not only to have the lead, but give them the momentum that they thought they could come back and win the ball game, which they did.
Yeah, and by the way, was there ever anything said over bringing Reyes back into that game? Was that because of the 3 batter minimum, or was that a move that the Cardinals made?
You know what? I didn't get an explanation, but here's the deal. Most ballparks now have a facility down below where you can throw. You can stay loose. It's not like in the old days where when you came out, you put your jacket on and you were done. He could go down there and soft toss and stay loose. And think about it. I mean, he wasn't bad. If Goldschmidt makes the play, they're out of this thing. All right. So it's a couple of things. And again, yesterday there were just not enough plays made behind pitching that really cost the Cardinals, not to mention the lack of timely hitting.
Yeah. By the way, Mike Shannon, you were doing the broadcast with him this weekend. He had the comment during the game that this team is not very good at all. Have you ever heard Mike Shannon just speak that bluntly on the air about
No, I've heard him say it before. I heard him say it during the Matheny regime. So yeah, it's not something that I haven't heard him say. I think Mike is a Cardinal fan and a Cardinal before anything else, and I think he's frustrated. And how many times have I told you how a 500 team can really create some angst between people and tension, because you think you're just this close, and then all of a sudden you have an issue that sets you back. It's part of being a 500 team. People get frustrated. You think you're better than what you are. You're not as good as what you need to be. And, then all of a sudden you pull one out of your hat and you feel like, okay, here we go, only to be beset by a game like we had yesterday. I mean, think about the first 2 games against Kansas City. Pretty good outings. Everybody contributed. You had 3 pinch hits in Saturday night's game. I mean, think about it. That's a lot. And they were all important pinch hits. Then you say to yourself, all right, here we go. We got a chance to beat these guys on Sunday. All of a sudden, you give up the 5 runs, as you mentioned. Now you're playing catch up. You climb back in the game. You tie the game in the 8th. And the winning run is at third base, and you get the strikeout. That's what comes with it. So I think you heard frustration in Mike Shannon's voice yesterday more than anything else.
Also around Major League Baseball, I don't know if you saw the what happened with the Rockies the other day and the incident that happened there. For those that did not see it, there were reports last night. There was video surfacing last night when Brinson was at the plate. Lewis Brinson, when he was at the plate, that there was a racial slur yelled out by the fans. The Rockies and media in Colorado has come out today and said that it was a misheard. The word was misheard, and that it was actually a fan in the front row who you can clearly see on video who was yelling to the Rockies mascot, Dinger. So I haven't seen if the Rockies have issued a statement on that, but I have seen that reports out of Denver media have said that everything that happened last night was a jump to conclusions a little too fast.
Well, I saw the report last night on ESPN, and they blanked out the word, so I couldn't tell what was being said. I think the fact that you had an African American at the plate, maybe that was the reason why they felt that word was being said. But I don't know. I wasn't there, and I still haven't heard what was actually said. Yeah. So I'm probably the wrong person to ask about what took place and what action should be taken.
And there were statements that were put out last night by the Rockies and also by Tony Clark, who's the president of the Players Association, and rightly so. If that word was said, they were, out there in front of it and saying that how wrong it was, and they were disgusted by it. But when you see the video and you see the guy in the background who was the one screaming, you can clearly see he was yelling at the mascot. And when you realize what he is saying, that word then becomes clearer to the situation.
I guess the other issue here is it's not like it hasn't happened before. Okay.
Right.
And I think that's probably why this story has drawn the attention that it has. When you think about the verbal abuse African American players have taken for the last 70 years on the field, you say to yourself, okay, so what else is new? But I hope that's the case in this situation where they misunderstood what was being said. But like I said, I wasn't there. And again, I have not heard what was uttered. So I'm the wrong guy for that one.
Yeah. And just as a whole, I think that you are seeing, and I don't know if it's a fact that fans weren't allowed in stadiums for a year or if it's just people are more comfortable with, being terrible people, but you are seeing more and more. You saw it with who's the Belleville, EJ Liddell, what happened to him back in March on social media. There was a pitcher for the Indians earlier this year who had a bad outing and goes and sees that he has DMs about people threatening his wife and his child because of a bad pitching outing for that. So it's just people that are able to hide behind, usernames and pictures of dogs on social media that feel that they can say or do whatever they want to professional athletes. They
say it to anybody. I mean, you don't have to be athletes. I mean, you have people who disagree with you on something and they just make it ultra personal, insensitive. But this is the life we've chosen as far as social media is concerned. And I don't know what you can do about it at this point because the toothpaste is truly out of the tube. And I think what you're going to see is more athletes get out of social media. I think you'll see more athletes find other methods of being able to communicate with fans. And it's unfortunate because, we always say, well, it's just a small group of people. No, it's not. It really isn't. It's a larger group than people are willing to admit. But how you fix it, I don't know. But I think you'll see more athletes walk away from it.
Or they'll get burner accounts like Kevin Durant, who we're going to talk about in just a second. But before I get to that, I do want to remind you that this is Lunch with Claibs and Joe here, powered by Ameren, Illinois. And, you know, it's going to be another hot week. Temperatures up in the 90s, the mid to upper 90s. Hey, just remember to turn off those lights, appliances, electronics when they're not in use. It's going to help reduce the temperature in your house. It's going to help keep that bill down quite a bit. Use the floor fans, the ceiling fans, especially on the nice days when it doesn't feel as hot, and make sure that those air filters for your air conditioners, clean air vents regularly, and make sure drapes and other furniture aren't blocking any of the vents or the returns in your house. And also, hey, go to Ameren, Illinois' website and see all of their other power saving, all of their money saving tips as we get into the hotter days here of August, the dog days of August here over the next week or so. Just a few tips from our friends over at Ameren, Illinois. Olympics did wrap up last night. U.S. wins the medal count again, gold medals and overall medals. And you saw basketball, which got off to a rough start, losing to France. They end up sweeping all of the gold medals in the men's, the women's, and the 3-on-3 women's. They did not have a team in the men's 3-on-3 department, but Kevin Durant helps keep the streak going, along with St. Louis's own Jason Tatum, who was a big factor for that Team USA.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. You mentioned they got off to a little bit of a slow start, but you know they put their foot on the gas pedal whenever they needed to. And kudos to those players who made an incredible sacrifice, the coaching staff as well. Obviously, this was an Olympic unlike anything we've ever seen. And for them to stay with it and stay focused, I certainly tip my cap to them and all the Olympians who had to wait an extra year and train an extra year. And, you know, maybe there would have been more medals won. Maybe there would have been more medals lost. I don't know. But it was one, obviously, for not only the athletes, but certainly the fans to really, really embrace and really get into. And I think a lot had to do with just the fact that, you know, the timing was a little awkward. It was just one that I think we say at the end, man, I'm just glad it's over. You know, but I'll tell you one thing that is interesting, Joe. I didn't hear about many people testing positive for any performance-enhancing drugs. I mean, normally that's a big story during the Olympics where somebody.
Does that happen during the Olympics, or does that usually happen after? Like post-Olympics is when you usually hear about that.
No, the way they can do testing now, they'll know before you leave.
Yeah.
So I didn't really hear about
Russia wasn't in the Olympics this year.
Yeah, they had their
whatever you call, the athletes of Russia.
I don't think we'll ever see the Russians back in the Olympics. And I'm serious. I mean, they have blatantly cheated so bad that USADA, I think, over the dead bodies of many, will never let the Russians back in by the way they've conducted themselves.
Yeah. By the way, of the good story, you didn't hear any stories of people that didn't qualify for the Olympics that would have in 2020 because it was pushed back a year, but you did hear plenty of good stories, or you saw the stories like the high school swimmer. There's no way that girl would have qualified if it was a year ago. That's one that she benefited from it going an extra year. And I think a really cool story too was JaVale McGee winning the gold medal with Team USA. His mom won with the USA women's basketball team back in 1984.
And maybe one of the greatest women's teams ever.
That was Cheryl Miller, right? That was
Cheryl Miller. Kim
Did anyone else score on that team? I mean, I saw pictures.
They had Kim Mulkey, Kim Mulkey Robertson, the coach at now used to be at Baylor, now at LSU. She was a point guard on that team. The McGee girls were there. Cheryl Miller. They had a really, really good team, man. And I remember that team like it was yesterday, 1984, the Olympics in LA. They were stacked, and Cheryl Miller. Man, I don't know how great she would have been had she not had the knee injury, but she was special. She could do anything.
I mean, you see what Diana Taurasi, did she just win her 5th gold medal? Is that what I?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. She's maybe my favorite all-time player because tough as barbed wire. And she and Gino had this love-hate relationship when she was at UConn. But she's a competitor. She's recovered from a broken back. She was able to play for her team late this year, But I mean, she'll go down probably as one of, if not the greatest female basketball player of all time.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Between her or Cheryl Miller, who you got?
Let's throw Brittany Griner in that conversation too.
Already?
Candace Parker. What hasn't she done? She's a difference maker in the game. I mean, we've seen women that are 6'3", 6'4", that were a little uncoordinated. Lisa Leslie came around and she was a dynamic player. Brittany Griner is a legit 6'8", all right, and can do anything with the ball. And remember, she's playing with a women's ball. She can palm it. And she's so dominant at both ends. Whenever they needed a basket, there she is. So, yeah, I put her in that conversation.
All right. We'll take your comments on that as well as we roll on here on Lunch with Claibs and Joe, also sponsored by Ryan Kelly, the home loan expert. Find him online at thehomeloanexpert.com. Did you see where Ryan Kelly was this weekend?
No, I didn't, but enlighten me.
He was in Canton, Ohio for Isaac Bruce's Hall of Fame. As
and you know what? I would have been there too. If I didn't have games this weekend, that would have been my place to be. I consider Isaac a very good friend and a guy who just epitomizes what being a pro athlete's all about on and off the field. And I couldn't be happier for him. And certainly Steve Atwater, another local young man who I knew just a little bit. Don't know Steve as well, but I knew guys he played with. And just a dynamic person. And Joe Buck, a good friend who I'm happy for as well. So it was a good week for St. Louis sports. When you think about the Hall of Fame, you think about the Olympics where we have a male and female gold medalists in basketball. The connection of Allison Felix with Dr. Rick Lehman.
I was going to say, I meant to bring that up earlier too. Yeah, he was real excited about her winning her 11th medal.
And I remember he and I talking about that early when she decided she was going to try it again. And he said, you can't bet against her. He said, she's going to have her hands full, but, if anybody can do it, it's her. So it was a good weekend for our athletes and people who've represented St. Louis so well, and Joe. So I'm really happy for everyone. But Canton, for me, I was telling Frank and I talk about this every year. It's the one weekend I cry because even with the games we had over the last 2 days, I watch every speech. I come home and I record, I watch every speech. And these players, you watch them play. I was happy for Harold Carmichael. But as I was telling Frank earlier, when they show these highlights of Drew Pearson and Harold Carmichael and some other great offensive players, there's a lot of football Cardinals making some play, trying to tackle somebody, man. I mean, we were dreadful defensively. And just to watch those guys get in, I was really happy. And I'm wondering who's going to be next from St. Louis.
You look at the list for next year, it's got to be Torrey Holt's year.
Yeah.
It has to be. So next year, here are the finalists for next year. I saw Adam Schefter tweeted out earlier today, the notable first-timers next year: DeMarcus Ware, Steve Smith, Andre Johnson, Robert Mathis, Anquan Bolden, Devin Hester, Vince Warfolk. The only one on that list that I think gets in first year or should get in first year is Devin Hester.
Yeah, I think you're right. That opens the door for some other guys. I don't think he's eligible yet, but London Fletcher's a Hall of Famer.
London Fletcher's been eligible, I thought, for a while.
No, I don't think so. I think he might be eligible, but it hasn't been that long. But the other guys, and here's the other thing that you bring up. Other than DeMarcus Ware, I don't think any of those guys won Super Bowls, did they?
Did Anquan Bolden?
Not maybe with Baltimore. I'm not sure. He didn't do anything with the Arizona
Vince
Cardinals.
Warfolk won.
With New England?
With New England.
All right. But I think you're right with regard to Torrey. And then I think we're going to have to wait and see because there's a whole nother batch of receivers. Bolin, Andre Johnson, Steve Smith Sr. There's some other guys that are going to start to get some talk. But I think Torrey's it should be his year.
Yeah. By the way, so London Fletcher has been eligible for 3 years now.
Okay. Well, he should be on the ballot.
And
I know they're going to say that he didn't have the Pro Bowls, But man, this guy made plays every Sunday.
I mean, for somebody that said, they didn't think he was going to make the team in 99, and for him to go on and play 256 consecutive games,
yeah,
that's more than making the team.
Well, you know what though? It's funny you bring up the consecutive game streak, because I think Jim Marshall was at like 282, and it took him forever to get in the Hall of Fame. Now, he was on the Minnesota Vikings the 4 years they went to the Super Bowl and they didn't win, and he was kind of maligned because they call him Wrong Way Marshall. I don't know if you knew the story. He picked up a fumble and ran the wrong way.
At the game in Philadelphia, right?
Yeah, but Jim Marshall, he's part of one of the best defensive lines in the history of the game. Him and Alan Page, Carl Eller, Gary Larson. I mean, Page and Eller are in the Hall. And Jim Marshall was as good of a defensive end as there was when he was on the field. So, it took him a while to get in. So hopefully it won't take London this long.
Yeah, I do think Torrey Holt's next member of the great. I mean, it's going in
the
offense. Yeah, he's the last member of the greatest show on turf that'll get in.
Yeah,
but yeah, London will be there from that team at some points. And there's been years. I mean, there's been years I've brought his name up when I've been on Radio Row, and his former teammates all say that he definitely should be in there. That he definitely deserves that over any of these guys. So yeah. He's definitely on that list. But yeah, Peyton Manning goes in this weekend as also if you haven't heard his speech. By the way, speeches were a lot shorter this year.
Well, they were timed. On stage.
Yeah.
I think they'll grow that a little bit. Maybe you get 10 minutes next year, but I think it makes for a better program to me. And Isaac Bruce's speech was probably one of my favorites. Let me tell you a quick story.
He had to ad-lib his too, because apparently Chris Berman walked off the stage with Bruce's speech. Yeah, with the iPad that had his speech on it. So Bruce just had to kind of ad-lib everything and remember.
He did a good job. He did a good job. So let me tell you a quick story. And he talked about somebody telling him, that they weren't thinking well of him. And I won't mention this guy's name because he's still in the game. But he was a team came to work him out, and this was right before the Super Bowl. And the scout told him, he said, "Look, I don't think this is going to work for you. If I were you, I'd try and get a degree. Maybe you ought to think about coaching or something, but I don't think you could play in the league." Super Bowl night, he's in the gym working out, right, just busting his ass, just going crazy. So now a team drafts him. They take him late. Because this coach who drafted him heard about him. Anyway, long story short, they get to the Super Bowl. And he lines up against the guy on the team where this scout had come from. And for the next 4 quarters, he proceeded to beat the living hell out of this very good player. And every time he'd lay it on him, he said, "You go tell that so-and-so that so-and-so is kicking your fucking ass every down." So now they get to the sidelines, and so the player who is being torched says to somebody, "Who is this name of this scout?" And they say, "Well, he's one of our scouts." Why? He said, "Now it's all coming to me. Now I know why he's upset." Game's over with. They shake hands, and the guy apologizes to him for cursing at him the way he did. And so he says, "Hey, I'm going to have a word with that scout, say he was dead ass wrong about you or your skill set." So those things happen. And, it's amazing how guys will live off of that. When somebody tells you can't, and then you just say, "Oh, really? Watch me." So I'm happy for Ike. Just a quality individual. Couldn't be happier for him.
Hey, before we get out of here, just some sad news and notes from this past weekend. The legendary Florida State football coach Bobby Bowden passed away this over the weekend. Your thoughts on his career?
Well, I got to know Coach Bowden many years ago and stayed in touch with him. Met him at a luncheon, and he and I had a mutual friend that we stayed in touch. And I remember they were playing. I want to say it was Pitt. And I'm talking to him on a Friday, or maybe it was a Thursday. I had him on a show. And so I said, "Hey, Coach," I said, "These young coaching staffs, they don't see the game like you do. I mean, you roll some things out there that they wouldn't see. I don't know what they do." He said, "Really?" He said, "Wait, like what?" I said, "Why don't you show up and give them a single wing formation or swinging gate formation and see what they do. And he just kind of chuckled, right? So they're playing Pitt. I'm almost certain it was Pitt. And it's late in the first half, and he goes into a single wing formation. You should have seen everybody on the field, all 11 players looking at each other. What the hell is this? You got coaches on the sideline or trying to get a time because they didn't know what to do. They'd never seen it before, at least not enough of them. And so they call a timeout. He comes back out with a swinging gate formation. The same thing goes on. And so they end up getting a field goal out of it. So that Monday, I get a call from his secretary. She says, my coach would like to speak to you. I was like, all right, I wonder what this is about. And so I answered the phone, and he's just laughing. He said, well, I hope you saw the game. You know, he had that real deep Southern drawl. And he just started laughing. He said, I wasn't trying to embarrass him, but I just thought it would be a good chuckle for us, you know. But I'll never forget that visit. One of the classiest men who never would openly be upset. I know people would question him because he had a field goal quick kicker that missed a couple of field goals against Miami. But, man, this guy could coach, man. He was an incredible person. He could coach. And he had some good players that played for him. When you think about Dion and Derek Brooks right off the top, he was a good man that we'll certainly miss. And I'm glad we had him around as long as we did.
Absolutely. Also, too, Dennis Thomas, one of the founders of Kool and the Gang, also passed away, too, this weekend.
You know, I was a huge fan of Kool and the Gang, and their longtime manager, Robert Stone, who was from St. Louis, who passed a few years ago, kind of put me with them a few times. And the songs they put out in the 70s and 80s, you know, Celebrate for one. There's so many. And I think there's maybe 2 original members left. I mean, it's a whole different band now. But, man, they had such an impact on so many in the 70s, 80s, and 90s.
Well, hey, I know we ended on a sad note here, Claibs, but hopefully you can get on a plane and head out to Pittsburgh and get a few wins for the Cardinals this weekend.
I'm going to do my best. That's all I can say. You know, I always say just do your job. As Bill Belichick says, and a lot of other great coaches, if you do your job, then you know what? We got a better chance. And so I'm going to do what I can. And I would hope these 25 players and 26 players and coaches will do theirs. And, you know, we got to come back, Joe, 5-1 minimum.
Yeah. I mean, Rammer and I have these discussions all the time where I say, you know, they need to sweep a series. Yeah. And, yeah, I mean, you know what? If you want to be serious contenders, go 6-0 this week and show baseball that you're back into things. So
and let's face it, Pittsburgh is awful. Okay, yeah. Cincinnati just went in and broke up all their furniture, but you can't disrespect them. They are a major league team, and they get paid on the 1st and 15th like everybody else. So they've got to do their business, and they have to make sure Kansas City's not a bad team. You know, they have a few players in that lineup I like. That Nicky Lopez is going to make them make a difficult decision on what they're going to do with Mondesi, who just stays hurt a lot. But they've got some good players you like, as I mentioned, Lopez, Whit Merrifield, Carlos Santana, Salvi Perez. You know, they may need some help in the outfield a little bit, but I think they've got some good young players that they can build around. If their pitching comes around, they might be a handful, and they could be a handful against the Cardinals next weekend.
Absolutely. We will be next Tuesday is when we're doing the lunch show, Claibs, because next weekend on Sunday, I'm going to be up at Wrigley Field for Green Day, Weezer, and Fall Out Boy. So I'm going to be up there for that, driving home on Monday. So we're going to have to push our show back to Tuesday next week. Sounds good to me. Well, be safe on the road. We'll talk before then. And for all of our viewers and listeners, we appreciate you tuning in today. And certainly we thank our sponsors, Munganast, also Ameren, Illinois, and the home loan expert, Ryan Kelly, for being part of what we do. Absolutely. We'll talk to you next week, everybody. For Mike Claiborne, I'm Joe Roderick. Have a great rest of your day.
St. Louis Acura is excited to announce the opening of our newly remodeled service lounge. We sell pre-owned vehicles of all makes and models and take pride in servicing what we sell. We offer free pickup and delivery service and a complimentary car wash and vacuum with every service. We also have a full-service reconditioning shop on site that can repair dents, bumpers, and wheels. As the nation's only 29-time Acura Precision Team winner for customer satisfaction, we work every day to make St. Louis Acura better than ever for you.